The arrival. The universe was vast, silent, and full of mysteries. Galaxies drifted in perfect harmony, untouched by anything beyond them. Peace had reigned for millennia, and the thought of anything disturbing that peace was nothing more than a distant myth. But all of that changed one quiet day. Far away, in the darkness of space, a signal was received. It came from Earth, a small blue planet, far from the heart of the galaxy. The message was simple but powerful. Humanity had sent something far more significant than just words. It was a signal of arrival. The aliens, who had long watched Earth from a distance, were confused and curious. Some thought it was a trick, a lure, or a distraction. Others felt the cold grip of fear. But one thing was certain: no one had ever seen anything like this before. As the massive ship entered the galaxy's view, the sense of awe was overwhelming. The size alone made it clear this wasn't any ordinary vessel. It was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Its metal surface gleamed in the light of distant stars, reflecting a design both ancient and advanced. The ship was ancient, yes, but its technology was far beyond anything the galaxy had ever imagined. No one knew who had built it, or where it had come from. The ship floated effortlessly, like a giant shadow in the void. Its presence was a sign of something profound. The galaxies knew something was coming, something big. Its size alone was enough to send shivers down the spine of any alien who had the courage to look upon it. The ship was a symbol of humanity's arrival. It wasn't just the ship's size that left people speechless. It was the aura of mystery surrounding it. As it drew closer to the galaxy's edge, its true purpose was still unknown. What was inside this ship? Was it a weapon, a message, a gift? Aliens from every corner of the galaxy stared at it with a mix of fear and wonder. They had seen other ships before, but nothing like this. The Earthlings, they thought, were primitive, even naive. But could their ship really be the result of such a weak species? Rumors spread quickly. Some thought the ship was the last remnant of some ancient civilization. Others believed it was a weapon, a threat sent by a species that could not be understood. But no one knew for sure. All they had was the ship, massive and silent, floating closer. The leader of one of the most powerful alien factions, a race that had dominated the galaxy for centuries, watched in disbelief. He had heard of Earth before, stories told by traders and travelers who had passed through the Milky Way. But Earth was considered insignificant in the grand scheme of things, nothing that could challenge the power of their fleets. But this ship, it was different. As the ship neared, there was no sign of aggression, no sign of attack. It simply floated, its massive hull reflecting the stars around it. The aliens were puzzled. What were humans doing? Why had they sent this colossal vessel into the galaxy? What did it mean? The first of many questions began to form. Was this ship an invitation, a warning, or a challenge? The ship's arrival sparked a mixture of excitement and fear. Some alien factions began to rally their forces, preparing for the worst. Others debated whether it was worth risking a response. Would humans be friendly? Would they negotiate? Or would they strike first, showing a power never before seen? The tension in the galaxy was palpable. Everyone could feel it. But no one knew what would happen next. What did Earth want? What was this ship's purpose? What was inside it? And what kind of technology did it hold? No one could answer these questions. The ship remained silent, a massive enigma. The galaxy held its breath. The moment of first contact was here. And yet, the true nature of what was to come remained hidden. As the ship continued to glide through the stars, a strange signal was sent from it. It wasn't a message or a beacon. It was something more. It was a call, a signal that would soon shake the entire galaxy. Humans had arrived in a way no one had ever expected, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The sight of the massive ship gliding silently through the cosmos spread like wildfire across the galaxy. The first whispers of its arrival were met with skepticism, but as the ship drew closer, the reality of the situation became undeniable. No one had seen anything like this before. Not in all the thousands of years the galaxy had known peace. The galaxy was a place of order, where powerful civilizations ruled and vast empires stretched across star systems. Everything had its place, and all knew the boundaries between them. But this ship was different. It didn't belong to any known species, and its design was unlike anything seen before. The entire galaxy held its breath, waiting for the ship to reveal its purpose. As the news spread, several alien species began to make preparations. The galaxy's most powerful factions convened in secret meetings, discussing what this ship could mean for the balance of power. Some believed the ship was sent by a new, unknown race. Others feared that this might be a weapon, one capable of wiping out entire civilizations in an instant. Among these factions, the Prevails, a highly advanced and aggressive species, took immediate notice. Known for their ruthlessness, they had conquered dozens of planets, and their fleets were unmatched. But this ship, it made them uneasy. The Prevails were not used to being challenged, and the sight of something so massive, so mysterious, made them reconsider their position. They had to know more. The thought of this ship being a simple human vessel was too absurd to believe. Other species, too, began to react in their own ways. The Allure, a peaceful race known for their knowledge and diplomacy, called for calm. They proposed sending a delegation to communicate with the humans aboard the ship. If it was a peaceful mission, the Allure wanted to be the first to establish contact. They believed that diplomacy was the key to understanding this strange ship. Meanwhile, the Centauri, a powerful warrior race, prepared for the worst. They saw every unknown force as a threat, and they wasted no time mobilizing their fleet, ready to strike should this ship turn out to be an enemy. There was no room for hesitation in their minds. This could be the beginning of a war, or perhaps a new era of peace. The uncertainty gnawed at them. On Earth, no one could have predicted the chaos they had unintentionally caused. Humanity had sent this ship into space, unaware of the storm it would stir. The ship was a symbol of human achievement, a marvel of engineering and technology. But now it had become a symbol of something more, a mystery that the entire galaxy was desperate to solve. As the ship neared the edge of the galaxy, the tension was palpable. Every eye, whether from a distant planet or a powerful empire, was focused on it. No one could remain indifferent to this giant that had arrived at their doorstep. And still, the ship remained silent, its purpose shrouded in secrecy. There were no communications sent from the ship. No demands, no messages, no explanations. The silence only deepened the intrigue. Was this a peaceful invitation, or a hidden threat? What did the humans want? No one knew, and that uncertainty was enough to send shockwaves through every corner of the galaxy. The larger factions began to prepare for all possibilities. Diplomatic efforts were launched by those seeking peace, while the more aggressive races prepared for battle, just in case. The uncertainty of the situation left the galaxy on edge, and every alien species feared the worst, though none could truly predict what would happen next. The humans, meanwhile, had no idea the storm their actions had caused. To them, this ship was a symbol of hope, a sign of progress. They had built it with the ambition to explore the stars, to connect with other civilizations. But now, they had become the center of attention for the entire galaxy. The first few days passed without incident, but the tension was thick. The galaxy had never been so united in its uncertainty. Would humanity bring peace, or would they bring war? Would the ship turn out to be a tool for diplomacy or a weapon of destruction? As the ship crossed into a new system, the stakes grew higher. The message was clear. Humanity had arrived. The galaxy's fate, for better or worse, seemed to hinge on what came next, and no one knew what that would be. The question lingered in every mind. What would happen when the humans made contact? With every passing moment, the sense of impending change grew stronger. The silence of the ship only heightened the anxiety, as the galaxy awaited the first move. Would humanity make the first contact peaceful, or would it stir the fire of conflict? The galaxy was watching, and the future had never been more uncertain. As the enormous human ship drifted closer to the center of the galaxy, a strange stillness seemed to settle over it. No communication had been sent from the vessel, and yet every species in the galaxy had been alerted to its presence. The silence grew heavier with each passing hour. The powerful factions watched, each waiting for something, anything, to break the quiet tension. Meanwhile, on Earth, humanity's leaders were on edge. The world's greatest minds had been preparing for this moment for years. The ship had been launched as part of the grand vision of space exploration, a dream that had been passed down through generations. But now, it wasn't just humanity's pride at stake. They had no idea how the galaxy would react. The peaceful explorers from Earth had become the subject of universal speculation, and the unknowns weighed heavily on their hearts. It was then, almost by accident, that the first signal was sent. A low-frequency pulse, barely perceptible to most species, transmitted from the human ship into the vast expanse of space. It was a simple message, a mathematical sequence designed to capture the attention of any intelligent beings listening. It was not an aggressive gesture, but a neutral one, humanity's first attempt at making contact. Back across the galaxy, it took mere moments for the alert to be received. The Prevails, the mighty conquerors of countless worlds, were the first to notice the faint pulse. Their scientists, ever vigilant and sharp, immediately recognized the significance. They had never encountered anything like it. The message was not a threat, nor was it a demand. It was simply a question, a call for contact. The Prevails were not accustomed to unanswered challenges, yet the pulse had no malice behind it, no power behind it, no intent to harm. The Prevails had long been the dominant force in the galaxy, a civilization forged through conflict and survival. But even they were caught off guard. This was not what they expected. Was humanity truly this naive? The Ailer, an ancient race known for their diplomacy and wisdom, were the next to receive the signal. They immediately understood the importance of the message. While others might have seen it as a challenge, the Ailers saw it as an invitation. They believed that humanity was reaching out in good faith, eager to learn, eager to make connections. But the Ailer also knew the importance of caution. What if the humans had underestimated the complexities of galactic diplomacy? What if their simplicity in message might lead to misunderstanding? News spread quickly across the galaxy. The Xanthari, a warrior race known for their aggressive nature, were the most skeptical. They did not trust the humans or their simple message. In their minds, a threat could be hidden behind such a benign signal. They had no reason to believe that humanity was acting in good faith. To the Xanthari, it seemed like a trap. The galaxy, on the edge of change, began to speculate wildly. What did this signal mean? Was humanity attempting to invite the galaxy into a new era of peace and cooperation? Or were they hiding something far more dangerous behind their quiet message? The uncertainty gnawed at every faction. Back on Earth, the scientific community and government officials were glued to their screens, anxiously watching the reactions unfolding across the galaxy. They had no idea how the message would be received. Would the galaxy welcome them, or would it see them as an inferior species, unworthy of consideration? Humanity's leaders, though nervous, felt a sense of pride in what they had done. The message sent had been designed with the hope of forging new bonds, of bringing peaceful relations with other species. But as they observed the reactions, doubt began to creep in. What if this message had been too simple? What if it had sent the wrong impression to the advanced civilizations that now surrounded them? As the weeks passed, humanity's ship continued to drift through the galaxy. Each species continued to study the message, analyze its implications, and determine how best to respond. The silence from the ship itself, once interpreted as a mystery, now became the most compelling element of the entire scenario. What were the humans waiting for? Why did they not take the initiative to explain their intentions more clearly? The galaxy was restless. The message had been received, but no one knew what would happen next. Would this be the beginning of a golden age for humanity, or would it mark the start of an intergalactic struggle, one humanity was not ready for? The tension continued to rise, and the galaxy held its breath, waiting for the humans to speak again. For humanity, the next move was uncertain. The ship's captain, a seasoned explorer named Captain Alaric, gathered his crew. They knew that the response to their signal could shape humanity's future in ways they could not yet comprehend. Captain Alaric understood the weight of the situation. He had spent his entire life preparing for this moment, but now, facing the reality of the galaxy's reaction, he felt a cold chill. The world's fate now rested in their hands. The crew began to prepare for the next step, their minds racing with possibilities. The galaxy was vast, and the unknown stretched before them. But humanity had come this far, and they had no intention of turning back. Days turned into weeks, and the tension in the galaxy began to escalate. Humanity's message had been heard, but the response, or lack thereof, was unlike anything anyone had anticipated. The massive human ship, floating in the void, had become a symbol of the unknown, a mystery that few dared to unravel. The galaxy's greatest minds were consumed with questions. What did the humans truly want? Were they peaceful explorers or cunning conquerors in disguise? The unknown hovered over every communication, every decision made. In the depths of space, the most powerful factions gathered to discuss the implications of this new development. The Prevails, long accustomed to ruling through fear and domination, found themselves perplexed. How could a species, so new to the galactic stage, approach them with such a simple yet profound signal? Their arrogance told them that humanity must be beneath them, yet something in the message resonated differently. It had none of the usual military aggression they had come to expect from lesser species trying to make a name for themselves. There was no demand for dominance, no display of power, just a question, an invitation. The Prevails High Council convened in their grand war room, a dark, imposing structure filled with the whispers of their advisors. They debated fiercely. Should they ignore the message, or should they meet this challenge head-on? The Prevails were not accustomed to uncertainty, but the simplicity of humanity's signal, and the underlying complexity it suggested, had begun to gnaw at their confidence. Are we to be led by this unknown species? One of the Prevails commanders asked, his voice dripping with disdain. Their message, simple, childish even, does it hold any real value? Another commander, one who had served on the front lines of countless battles, disagreed. I believe we must investigate. We cannot underestimate them just because they send a peaceful signal. The galaxy has changed, and humanity may be at the heart of that change. The debate raged on, but no conclusion was reached. The Prevails were divided, their powerful leadership at odds with the uncertainty of what humanity represented. Across the galaxy, the Ailer remained calm, perhaps too calm. Their philosophy was one of understanding, and they had never been quick to react to potential threats. To them, humanity's message seemed like a genuine attempt to make contact. They understood that first contact could be unpredictable, and the right approach was to extend a hand of peace. However, they, too, faced their own doubts. What if humanity's simplicity was a mask for something more dangerous? What if they were hiding their true power or intentions? The Ailer did not want to make a mistake, and they did not want to underestimate the power of a species that had never been in the galaxy's spotlight until now. In the quiet corners of the galaxy, the Xanthari were sharpening their weapons, their hatred for anything that wasn't their own kind driving them to the edge. They were quick to anger and quicker to strike. They saw humanity's message as nothing more than a challenge. Why would such a young species dare to speak to them, to make its presence known with no understanding of the consequences? They are nothing. The Xanthari warlord spat. We will teach them what happens when they reach too far. They began to prepare, organizing their fleets, ready to strike at any moment. The message from humanity had ignited something primal in them, a desire to dominate and destroy before being destroyed. For the Xanthari, it wasn't about understanding. It was about survival, and they would not hesitate to eliminate any threat, no matter how small. Back on Earth, humanity's leaders were watching the responses unfold from a distance. The message had been received, but what was the next step? No one could have predicted the galaxy's reactions. The Prevails seemed confused, the Ailer cautious, and the Xanthari furious. Humanity had no idea how to handle the galaxy's responses. They had sent a peaceful message, hoping to establish dialogue, but now they were left to wait, to wonder if they had misjudged the situation. Captain Alaric stood on the bridge of the human ship, staring out at the endless sea of stars. His heart was heavy with the weight of responsibility. They had done everything they could to prepare for this moment, but now that it was here, it felt like nothing could have truly prepared them for what was unfolding. This wasn't supposed to be a war, Alaric muttered, almost to himself. We wanted peace. He glanced over at his crew, each one staring at their screens, each lost in their thoughts. The first contact had become a waiting game. What would happen next? Would the galaxy come together in peaceful unity, or would it be torn apart by the uncertainty humanity's message had caused? Suddenly, a loud chime echoed across the bridge, pulling everyone's attention to the central screen. The message was clear. The Prevails had made their decision. The High Council had agreed to send a response. The question that had been gnawing at the hearts of humanity's leadership, what would the galaxy do next, was about to be answered. But just as quickly, another transmission appeared. This one was from the Ailer. They were responding as well, and a third signal blinked on the screen, a warning from the Xanthari. The galaxy was about to be thrown into chaos. Humanity's ship had become the center of an intergalactic storm, a storm of suspicion, diplomacy, and anger. But they still had hope. Their message had been received, and the galaxy was reacting. The first contact had begun, and the world held its breath, unsure of what would happen next. As the galaxy waited, the silence was deafening. Every faction, every empire, and every species, from the smallest to the mightiest, had been touched by humanity's simple yet profound signal. It had sparked fear, curiosity, and anticipation in equal measure. There were whispers everywhere, inside war rooms, diplomatic halls, and even hidden corners of space stations. Humanity, once a forgotten and insignificant species, had suddenly become the center of the galaxy's attention. The Prevail High Council was in turmoil. Their great empire had withstood centuries of conquests, their power unquestioned. They had crushed rebellions, fought countless wars, and ruled with an iron fist. But now, faced with humanity's peaceful message, they were unsure of how to proceed. Should they respond with force, as they always had with lesser species, or should they entertain this strange, peaceful gesture? The Prevails were a race built on control and dominance. They believed in the survival of the fittest, and anyone who dared to challenge their authority was swiftly defeated. But humanity's message was different. It was not a demand, nor a challenge. It was an invitation to talk, to meet, and to understand. And that was what terrified the Prevails the most. An unknown species, one they had never encountered, extending a hand of peace. It was a gesture that neither provoked nor intimidated, but simply asked for communication, and that was something the Prevails could not comprehend. At the head of the council sat Supreme Commander Veltheros, his sharp eyes scanning the communication devices in front of him. The room was filled with murmurs as the other council members debated. Some were eager to respond with their usual show of force, to teach this young species a lesson. Others, however, saw the potential for something greater. "We cannot ignore them," Veltheros said, his voice cold and steady. "Their presence in the galaxy could mean something far more significant than we understand. We must consider our options carefully." A younger counselor, Chirath, who had seen the devastation of past wars, spoke up. "Supreme Commander, with all due respect, we are the Prevails. Why do we hesitate? Let us show them our power. They are weak, untested. A show of force will make it clear that they are not welcome in our galaxy." The room fell silent. Veltheros' eyes narrowed, his sharp mind weighing the situation. The Fails had never been known for hesitation, yet something about humanity's message made them question their typical approach. Could they really afford to underestimate such a species? Meanwhile, far across the galaxy, the Allure were making their own decision. Unlike the Fails, the Allure were a peaceful and thoughtful species, dedicated to understanding the complexities of the universe. They had observed the message from humanity with a level of intrigue rather than fear. The Allure Council convened in their tranquil hall, surrounded by flowing water and bioluminescent plants. The atmosphere was serene, the air filled with the hum of calm contemplation. Elder Ilithar, the head of the council, addressed the gathered leaders with a quiet authority. The humans have sent a message of peace. It is unlike any we have received before. We must respond in kind, with the openness of our minds and hearts. To meet this species with hostility would be a grave mistake. The other council members nodded in agreement. They had long understood that the key to progress was peaceful cooperation. They did not fear humanity's ship. Instead, they saw it as a new opportunity to learn and grow. Yet, even as the Allure prepared to extend their invitation to humanity, they too were filled with doubt. The galaxy had become a place where strength and power ruled, where diplomacy was often an afterthought. Could the Allure's peaceful approach survive in such a hostile environment? And what of the Fails, who had always used fear and intimidation to bend others to their will? And then there were the Xanthari, the most brutal and unpredictable of the galaxy's species. They had already made their intentions clear. Humanity's signal had been a threat, one they would not tolerate. The Xanthari were a race built on warfare, violence, and domination. They believed in the survival of the strongest, and any species weak enough to show an overture of peace would quickly become a target. The Xanthari warlords, gathered in their dark, cavernous war hall, bellowed their outrage. "Peace, peace!" War Chief Xeroth roared, his voice shaking the walls. "This is a weakness, a lie. The humans are trying to deceive us. They are not our allies. We must destroy them before they become a real threat to us all." The Xanthari were preparing for war, their ships already mobilizing. The galaxy was now caught in a precarious balance. Some wanted peace, others wanted power, and others, like the Xanthari, only sought destruction. The stakes were higher than ever, and humanity's fate was about to be decided by the actions of these three powerful factions. Back on Earth, President Eleanor McAllister watched the unfolding chaos with a mixture of hope and dread. Her species had no idea what they had started. They had sent a simple message, hoping to make contact, to learn from others, and perhaps to join the galactic community. But now, as the first signs of galactic conflict appeared on the horizon, she couldn't shake the feeling that humanity had walked into something far bigger than they had imagined. "We must prepare," President McAllister said, standing up from her desk and walking over to the view of the Earth below. "The galaxy is not ready for us. But we can still make a difference." The human ship, sitting silently in the vastness of space, was a symbol of hope and of the storm to come. The Council's decisions would soon determine the future of humanity's place in the galaxy. Would they stand together in peace, or would the galaxy's power struggle swallow them whole? The next few days would be critical. Humanity's future was on the line, and they could not afford to make the wrong move. As the galaxy's leaders pondered their responses, a sudden shift in the tides of power began to take form. The message from humanity, once a hopeful invitation for peace, had inadvertently pushed the galaxy's delicate balance to the edge of disaster. Diplomatic channels buzzed with activity, but the air was thick with tension, fear, and uncertainty. What was humanity's true purpose in sending such a simple message? On Earth, President Eleanor McAllister sat in her command room, her eyes scanning the holographic display of incoming signals from every corner of the galaxy. They had hoped to inspire cooperation, to show the galaxy that there was more to them than violence and war. But with each passing day, the weight of their actions grew heavier. It was no longer about first contact. It was about survival. "We've underestimated the reaction," McAllister said quietly to her top advisors, her voice filled with concern. "The Fails are readying their fleet, the Xanthari are preparing for war, and the Alir are the only ones who seem willing to extend their hand in peace." One of her advisors, General Richardson, looked up from his console. "We can't just sit here and wait. We've already made our intentions clear. Now it's up to the galaxy to decide how they'll respond." But there was no answer, at least not yet. The situation was spiraling out of control, and time was running out. Elsewhere, the Fails War Council convened in their massive, darkened command center, surrounded by towering holograms of galactic maps. Supreme Commander Veltheros paced back and forth, his mind working through the dilemma. He had always prided himself on being able to control the outcome of any situation, but this was different. Humanity's message had caught him off guard, and he wasn't sure whether it was a trap or an opportunity. "They are not like any species we've faced before," Veltheros muttered to his second-in-command, Commander Zalek. "Their message of peace doesn't fit the usual patterns. It's too simple, too human." Zalek, whose face remained stern and unreadable, nodded. "Perhaps it's a trick. They could be trying to lull us into a false sense of security. But we can't afford to ignore them, Commander. If we act too soon, we risk appearing weak. We need to take the time to understand what they truly want." Veltheros stopped pacing and turned to face Zalek. "I agree. But if they're truly as harmless as they appear, then they must be dealt with swiftly before they become a threat. We'll send a small delegation to meet them, a show of strength to remind them who controls the galaxy. If they refuse to submit, we'll crush them." And so, the Fails began to make their move. Their fleet, vast and powerful, began its slow journey toward Earth, a signal that war was imminent unless humanity complied with their terms. As they moved through space, their ships left a trail of energy behind them, a silent reminder of the Fails' dominance. Meanwhile, the Alir watched with growing concern. They had always believed in the power of peaceful resolution, but even they could see the storm approaching. Elder Ilithar, leader of the Alir, sat with his council, contemplating their next steps. He knew that their peaceful message was not enough to protect humanity from the growing tension surrounding them. "We must prepare," Ilithar said, "not for war, but for diplomacy. We cannot let the Fails dictate the future. We must act now, before it's too late." The Alir fleet, smaller and more peaceful than the Fails, began to mobilize as well. They would not fight, but they would be there to stand alongside humanity when the Fails arrived. The Alir had no intention of allowing a war to break out, but they could only do so much. And then there were the Xanthari. In their war hall, the Xanthari were already making plans for a strike against Earth. Their war chief, Xeroth, was an embodiment of raw violence and chaos. He saw humanity's message as nothing more than a challenge to be crushed. His warriors had already begun assembling in their formidable warships, eager to show the galaxy just how dangerous they could be. "They think they can just send a message and not face the consequences," Xeroth growled. "Let them think they are safe. Let them think they are strong. We will show them the true meaning of power." The Xanthari had no interest in peace. To them, humanity was another weak species to be conquered and crushed under their boots. They had no patience for negotiations, no interest in diplomacy. Their only goal was to destroy. As all of this unfolded, humanity's position remained uncertain. Their fleet sat silently in space, awaiting the galaxy's next move. President McAllister and her advisors knew the consequences of their actions. They had unknowingly thrust themselves into the heart of a galactic struggle, and they had no idea how it would play out. Would the Fails destroy humanity? Would the Xanthari bring their bloodthirsty war to Earth? Or would the Alir's peaceful approach be enough to bring an end to the conflict before it even started? The next few days would be crucial. The galaxy's fate, as well as humanity's, hung in the balance. The galaxy would soon learn whether humanity's peaceful message had been a blessing or a curse. The galaxy was on the brink. The vast emptiness of space seemed to hold its breath as the three galactic powers, Prevails, HFY, and Shudders, prepared for a confrontation that could alter the course of history forever. Humanity had unknowingly thrown the first stone, sending out their simple, peaceful message, unaware of the storm it would unleash. The Prevails, ruthless and calculating, were the first to arrive in Earth's solar system. Their fleet, a terrifying wall of dark ships, appeared on the edges of the solar system, casting long shadows across the planets below. Supreme Commander Valtheros stood at the helm of his flagship, gazing out at the distant planet of Earth. His thoughts were focused and cold. "Prepare to deploy our forces," he ordered. "Let them feel the weight of our power." Their intentions were clear: to bring humanity to its knees. But as the Prevail fleet advanced, the HFY arrived quietly, like shadows in the night. Their ships, elegant and shimmering with soft golden light, entered Earth's orbit without fanfare. Elder Elithar stood at the head of the HFY Council, their wisest and most respected leaders. Despite the overwhelming threat of the Prevails, the HFY maintained a calm resolve. "We cannot let the Prevails decide the fate of humanity," Elder Elithar said with determination. "We will stand with them, not as warriors, but as protectors. Let us show them the strength of peace." The HFY fleet, though smaller and less imposing than the Prevails, was not without its power. They were the galaxy's peacekeepers, with the technology to intervene without resorting to violence. Their ships moved in perfect synchronization, positioning themselves between the Prevails and Earth. But it was the Shudders that surprised everyone. In a flash of terrifying speed, their warships appeared in the distant stars, advancing with overwhelming force. Xeroth, their war chief, was eager to engage, his bloodlust driving his every action. He saw humanity as nothing more than an obstacle, a species to be destroyed for their own amusement. "We will not allow these weaklings to survive." Xeroth snarled as his ships surged forward, their weaponry ready. "Let them learn what true power is." With the three factions in position, Earth found itself at the center of a galactic struggle. The fate of humanity hung in the balance, and the entire galaxy was watching. At Earth's command center, President McAllister and her advisors watched the unfolding chaos on their screens. The images were a blur, flashes of ships, the movement of fleets, and the ominous proximity of the Prevail ships. Every minute felt like an eternity as they tried to calculate their next move. "What do we do now?" one of the generals asked, fear in his voice. "We stand firm," McAllister responded, her voice filled with resolve. "We've come this far, and now it's time to show the galaxy who we are. Humanity doesn't bow to threats. We won't back down." But even as the president spoke, she knew the consequences of their actions could be dire. The Prevails were not known for mercy, and that Shudders had no interest in negotiations. If they weren't careful, they could find themselves at the mercy of forces far beyond their comprehension. In the depths of space, the three fleets began to move. The Prevails advanced first, their ships positioning themselves to block any further progress from the HFY or Shudders. They were ready for battle, their weapons primed, and their soldiers prepared to engage. But something unexpected happened. The HFY ships didn't move to attack. Instead, they moved closer to Earth's orbit, forming a protective ring around the planet. "We come not to fight." Elder Elithar's voice echoed across the galaxy, broadcast to all three factions. "We come to protect." Humanity's message was one of peace, and we honor that. We will not allow aggression to claim their home. The Prevails paused, unsure of how to respond. Their ships hovered in the silence of space, the tension between the two forces palpable. Valtheros, always the tactician, hesitated. Would he engage in battle with the HFY, or was there another way? But before he could decide, the Shudders made their move. Xeroth's warships surged forward, eager to strike. He had no intention of waiting for peace talks or negotiations. With a roar, he ordered his fleet to unleash their firepower. The first wave of missiles shot through space, headed straight for Earth. Time seemed to freeze. The Fails responded instantly, their massive ships opening fire to intercept the Xanthari missiles. A brutal and fiery exchange erupted in the cold void of space as the two powerful fleets collided. Explosions lit up the stars, and the galaxy watched in stunned silence. The Allure, determined to prevent full-scale war, began to activate their defensive shields, protecting Earth and deflecting the incoming fire. President McAllister watched in horror as the screen flickered with flashes of light from the distant battle. Humanity was now caught in the crossfire. Would they be able to survive this onslaught? Or would the galaxy witness the fall of the human race at the hands of merciless warlords? In the chaos of battle, humanity's ship, the colossal force that had brought them to this moment, stood silently at Earth's defense. The ship, the symbol of their strength, had remained a silent observer, waiting for the right moment to strike. As the battle raged on, a final decision would need to be made. Would humanity rise to the occasion? Would the galaxy ever truly understand what it meant to be human? Would peace be possible, or had the galaxy irrevocably shifted into a new age of war?